House, Floyd Green, and the leader of opposition business in the House, Philip Paulwell, and that matter of the Joint Select Committee looking at the coordination of the Hurricane as he keeps saying, Hurricane Melissa relief effort, and what the opposition has to say about the invitation to participate. The long and short of it is that the government will not proceed with the Joint Select Committee, given that the opposition say that they will not nominate any members to sit on the Joint Select Committee. The government has abandoned it and is instead saying that they will just work with the committees of Parliament already established that deal with these matters. They're going to proceed with those committees. So PAAC and other committees, the Parliament's Infrastructure and Development Committee, I'm sure, all of those things will come in, and those are two of the committees that you expect, especially PAAC. Well, not one more than the other. PAAC, both PAAC and the Infrastructure and Development Committee would expect to play prominent roles in the oversight of Hurricane Melissa relief spending. But there are several questions consequent upon the opposition's reaction and declaration about nominating members to sit on the Joint Select Committee. Now, Kevin, if you go to the 6 a.m. bulletin this morning and find story number 7, you will hear what Minister Green read based on the letter sent to him by the leader of opposition business in the House, Philip Paulwell. And I want you to play for me what Floyd Green read into the parliamentary record about the opposition's stance on that Joint Select Committee to exert oversight over the Melissa response relief effort.
On reflection on this matter, the opposition believes that such a committee would not be necessary and appropriate at this time, as it would be duplicating and usurping the role and function of the PAAC. Please be reminded that the main functions of the PAAC, considering the above, we strongly urge the government to allow the existing arrangements for oversight in all aspects of the works related to Hurricane Melissa recovery be maintained. Best regards, Philip Paulwell, and this letter was sent on Friday, November 7th by electronic mail.
All right. So for context, the PAAC, Public Administration and Appropriations Committee, that is chaired by an opposition member. Of course, you will remember the brouhaha over opposition members chairing sessional committees of Parliament. But PAAC is chaired by an opposition member, Peter Bunting. Paulwell also said to Floyd Green that a Joint Select Committee, including members from the Senate, would be unprecedented, never before has it happened in the Parliament. And so that, I'm sure, was cited by Paulwell as a reason for the opposition members not wanting any part or parcel with this Joint Select Committee to exert oversight over the Hurricane Melissa relief work, the spending and the works attendant to the spending. This is what Green told the Parliament insofar as his official reaction to Paulwell's letter captured in the record of Parliament. This is what he said.
This reversal is particularly surprising, given that during your press conference on November 3rd, 2025, the leader of the opposition explicitly called for additional oversight of the process. The Prime Minister's decision to establish a joint select committee was aimed at fostering national consensus and unity, and in direct response to the opposition's public call for greater oversight. The precedence for this approach was established during the COVID-19 pandemic, when a similar oversight committee was appointed to consider the COVID-19 pandemic and related matters. It is therefore both perplexing and troubling that the opposition now appears to be retreating from its own stated position.
So the opposition has to be careful now. First of all, I don't see this issue as signs of, problems in the democracy. It is everything that is happening in this issue is supported by the democracy. But here's where the opposition have to be careful. And this is not something for cuss opposition vote, This is to understand in context, because, they're opposition. Their raison d'etre is to make a government misstep. That's a fact. That's what an opposition party exists to do. And their role is to do things in a way so that it becomes apparent to the people being governed that this government isn't good enough doing the work expected of them. So you should put in the alternative. The alternative, of course, would be us. That's an opposition's reason for existence, reason for being. That's what I mean by the fancy term, raison d'etre. That's what it means. So the opposition exists to do that. But here's where I say they have to tread carefully. The opposition leader, Mark Golding, in an impassioned appeal where he was wearing the Jamaica cap, spoke about oversight and wanting more oversight. Remember now, the Prime Minister and the administration felt that the committees of Parliament that exist would be sufficient to provide the parliamentary oversight needed for the Melissa relief effort. But hearing the impassioned call from the opposition leader for additional parliamentary oversight, the Prime Minister and the government said, all right, opposition leader, to show you, even though we're in charge of government, even though we were voted in to make these decisions, and even though all responsibility stops with us, there'll be never a bad decision made that the opposition contributed to, that when it explodes, the opposition will say, well, don't blame the government because we were party to it. No, the same opposition that was party to what turns out to be a bad decision will turn around and be the ones leading the criticism of the government for the thing having gone bad. Prime Minister says, notwithstanding all of that, I've heard you, opposition leader. I'm going to put together a joint select committee, invite you to put members on it, and that will be part of the additional oversight that you've called for, because I'm showing you that I'm being partial to your request for partnership, and I'm opening up the process so you can have a direct look outside of PAAC, which your member chairs. I'm listening to you and I'm agreeing with you to put this thing in place. Then after the Prime Minister does that, the opposition PNP turns around and says, you know what? We don't think it's necessary. That is bad form. And there's so many things happening daily that we forget so many things. We must write this down, and note it, because there will come a time in the future, many times in the future, where the opposition will call for something it feels is important. The government will not listen that time. And then the accusation from the opposition will be that the government doesn't listen. And the government never takes advice. And the government is unwilling to acquiesce to a suggestion to act in a certain way, or to create another avenue for the opposition to participate in decision making, in providing oversight, in providing leadership, and that the government is not handling the democracy in a participatory way. That will be the accusation made, notwithstanding this occasion where they asked for something, got the something, then turned around and said the something is now redundant. And behind all of this, is the abiding feeling from the opposition that the sessional committees of Parliament, which are chaired or which are going to be chaired by government MPs, that those ought to be all given to opposition MPs. It is still upset about that. It is still upset about the number of people in the cabinet, and it is still upset about the number of people who have been named state ministers, because you see the criticism come back now about, it's unprecedented for senators to be part of these joint select committees. Unprecedented. So, despite you being opposition, you are telling the government how many people should be in cabinet, telling the government how many people should be state ministers, telling the government how big the size of its backbench should be, and telling the government that your backbench in the House is not big enough. So, you go into the Senate to fill seats in these sessional committees is unprecedented. That's not how the democracy has run over time. It's not wrong, and there's no rule that is being broken. But we don't believe that it's right. We believe the cabinet too big, your state minister slate too big. We believe that your backbench is too small, and we believe that the opposition still wants to call all the shots and determine how big cabinet should be, how big the state minister slate should be, how big the backbench should be, despite them not having won power on September 3. And that is what all of this goes back to. So, the PAAC stands, and as the leader of the House said yesterday, since it is that the additional parliamentary oversight you asked for and then declined to send any members to sit on it after we gave you what you asked for, causing us to have to do away with it and proceed with the existing committees, we will do just that. Democracy is a hell of a thing. It's a heaven of a thing and a hell of a thing. It's a devil of a thing. The democracy caused the government to listen to the opposition. But at the same time, in the democracy, an opposition who was not selected to lead government can in a bold-faced way deal with a government and approach a government like it and not the government is in charge of these things and can call the shots. Nobody said democracy is perfect. It's all we have. We have to work with it. Break time. Back with more after this.
My hands were steady.
Ending the difficulties at the Integrity Commission. And the Auditor General as a commissioner of the Integrity Commission. You can call her an Integrity Commissioner as well. She is that. It's going to take something extraordinary for me to quarrel with the Auditor General about anything, because the Auditor General's record, I think, is good, solid. One of our best public servants over a long time. Herself and the departed DPP Paul Llewellyn, as women in the public service, have my utmost respect. And boy, it's tempting to lump her with some of what is happening at the Integrity Commission, or has happened at the Integrity Commission, much of which I disagree with strongly. But I can't change my view of Pamela Monroe Ellis at all. And as I say, it's going to take something extraordinary for me to think that, boy, this woman is doing things except in the proper way that they ought to be done. Really outstanding, and I just want to say that. Saying that, her department has announced that is going to engage in real-time auditing of the Hurricane Melissa relief effort. And let me tell you this, that's music to my ears. We need that kind of oversight from the Auditor General's Department, and I'm very happy that it's not a post-event thing, because by definition, if you look at the origin of the word forward, an audit is something performed after the fact. This one, she says, no, we're walking lockstep. You spend $1, I'm going to audit that $1 there. It's still after the fact, because you can only audit after the dollar has been spent. But they're not waiting until the bill reach $1,000,000,001. From the first dollar, the second dollar, the third, and forward, right with you all the way. And with the Auditor General, not a ghoulish presence in the background, but looming large. Any little hanky-panky that could happen may be forced out. Because, you know, the history of this country, you know, and I have not been here long relative to many people, but I too have seen enough of how we handle these things. And oftentimes, incompetence is so rampant that it begins to take on the appearance of corruption. And then on another hand, corruption also attends to processes and the situations where there's money being spent, especially money being spent quickly, especially money being spent in circumstances where the usual backstops and controls are relaxed or removed to facilitate immediate relief and assistance to people in need, as in this situation. Ripe for corruption, those circumstances are. And I've seen enough of that in this country. And sometimes I say to myself that, boy, I fully expect at least 2 scandals to emerge out of this Hurricane Melissa relief effort. And here's where I'm coming from. Let me explain. A scandal is an action or event regarded as morally or legally wrong and causing general public outrage. So how the scandals will work here, I expect at least 1 scandal to be stoked by those other one could happen by virtue of how many people are dealing with this relief effort, and those same relaxed, they see the chance to profit for themselves. And I'm not talking about people at the very top, because those are never the ones. It's the ones who hide in the crevices, knowing that anything that goes wrong will be blamed on minister this and minister that and so forth, so forth. Not those people, because it's easy to keep a check on those people. And those people are, you don't think they're damaging reputations for whatever is on offer. It's elsewhere. And I may be wrong, but that's just how I feel. And something may happen there that turns out to be a genuine scandal. And I hope on both, well, for certain, I hope that where it is I'm expecting some actor in this long chain, one of those links or 2 of those links or 3 of those links at different parts of the chain continuum may act in an immoral or illegal way, managing this relief effort. I hope that doesn't happen. But guess what now, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, 4%ers and guests. I see you, Shane Mark. Good morning, sir. What will happen as night follows day, there will be at least 1 scandal that germinates from a situation impregnated by those who don't want this government in office. Tomorrow is Thursday, right? As sure as tomorrow is Thursday. You know must see Thursday, me no must see Thursday. But Thursday will come. It's a fact. If the world is nuked right now, tomorrow will still be Thursday. As sure as tomorrow is Thursday, that first scandal will happen. And it will fall to people like myself to probe and prod and to give you the information that is accurate. I hate using this word about facts, but sometimes it gets away. But give you the information that is accurate so you can make your mind up about where truth lies. And even if the other one occurs, the task will also fall on people like myself to sift through, to hold those responsible to account, to ensure that if a minister is involved, that minister's feet is held to the fire. If somebody lower down the chain is involved and causes a minister to come under undue pressure, and then they have to walk the plank because of somebody else in the chain of command in the continuum, that we highlight that individual and stop this nonsense of everything go wrong, minister. Listen, if it is one thing you 4%ers, I want you to take from me and to start adopting in your everyday comings and goings. I've always said this to you and I'll say it again. I don't want you to behave like those who, when someone goes to Bustamante Hospital for Children or goes to KPH or goes to Cornwall Regional and there's no paper towel or toilet paper in the restroom, call for the health minister's resignation. That is so stupid, that is asinine. And we have a tendency to do that. And that line of thinking not only applies in that situation and makes that situation worse, it applies elsewhere where you have smaller actors in the overall get-up not doing things the right way, and we blame a minister for somebody else, and that person gets off scot-free. But the minister is fried. If the minister is responsible, fry him or her. I'll give you the oil, and I light the stove myself. But when it is not them, when it is somebody smaller scale who's doing the damage, we're frying that individual and leave the ministers alone. That's my commitment to you. Anyway, break time. More after this.